Let me do a little shout out. Can you just like play along?
What? I'm excited. I'm excited. Tell me of this strange new opportunity.
Oh man, so you know how like you get like really, really thirsty and you don't want to go to the store, but you always want to have like water by your side?
I've never been thirsty in my life.
Never been thirsty?
You're describing.
Well, you're not human, and usually humans need water. They have a thing called thirst. And some people, like, they get bottled water, but apparently that's bad for you. But I bought this new product. It's not exactly new, but it is newer for other people to know about. And it is called TK's water bottle. And it changed my life, Dan.
Wowzers. Tell me how it changed your life.
It changed my life because I suffer from awful, awful acne. And instead of going to a dermatologist, I decided to drink more water. And plus, water is so needed for humans that they should drink it all the time. So when I started carrying this around, I started to remember, oh yeah, I need to drink more water. So I have water a lot now.
Boom. It's like a permanent reminder. And I wonder if somebody could fashion like a little bracelet that you can connect your water bottle to. And then whenever you glance at the bracelet, it'll just say, did you drink water?
They are actually, TK's is working on that. That's a thing.
Okay.
That
well,
if it wasn't a thing before this sentence, it has to be now because it's a sponsor for it. But also, if I ever wanted tea, I mean, I drink tea all the time, and I always use this.
Wow, so stylish, so snappy.
Thank you. Yeah. It opens from
and
the
that's
bottom.
Where you keep the special files that you can smuggle out of Jurassic Park.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, I never knew that it did that. That's kind of cool. You could put something in there. If you're a weed smoker and you're trying to get past customs, you can just put that in there and you'll be fine. I'm sure this is for tea, not drugs. But yeah, it's bamboo style. So it's really, really cool. I've gotten a lot of compliments on it because I drink from it all the time. Well, it is good to see you again, Dan.
Oh, Tony, it's so good to see you too.
Yeah. How's your TV viewing going? Have you watched anything interesting?
Interesting. Well, there's this little known flick out on, I don't know if it's like an independent supplier. From Disney. It's from Disney.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Marvel.
I think it's DS. T. There's a T at the end of their streaming service. Disney.
Right.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Is it the one with the superheroes in it?
It's the one. Well, no, they're not superheroes. They're like husband and wife who get into wacky kind of shenanigans in their home. And sometimes the neighbors pop up and there are a lot of laughs, but also sometimes it gets spooky and weird.
Yeah, I think I have watched that. In fact, I just watched episode 3. I think it was called Now in Color.
I was talking about Doctor Who or something, but...
Oh.
No.
Well, we can talk about Doctor Who if you want.
Let's not. Actually, let's never, actually.
Yeah,
don't get me started. Don't get me started.
That would be a forever thing. But no, WandaVision episode 3 has just recently aired. And with the double digits of views from our viewers, I think it was only...
It's only right.
It's only right to continue the discussion. Like I said last week, throughout the years of our conversations that we have posted publicly, there would be year span breaks, but recently we've been closer and closer.
It's because we finally know how to do this thing technically, consistently, yes. And we don't
jinx it.
Yeah. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Here.
I probably shouldn't have said the J word anyway.
But yeah, thanks to technology and the current stay inside in your hobbit hole climate, it means that we're watching a lot of stuff and we're talking about stuff that we're watching.
We're talking about it, and even though last week we were a little late because we aired the episode a day after recording. Very unprofessional of me. A day after recording, we released the episode. But that episode was released the day after episode 3. So now we're here talking about episode 3. And so one thing that you and I both noticed was that each episode, even though it's still the sitcom,
that you're calling me.
What the hell?
It says that you're calling me. Just want to let you know. Is that actually
Why is
you?
this happening?
Who's doing this to you, Anthony?
I don't know, but now I feel like I'm in WandaVision right now. My phone apparently died, which is perfect, so that gives me a reason to throw it away. Anyways. So, episode 1, titled Live Before a Studio Audience, was, what decade do you think that was centered on?
Well, I thought that the first 2 episodes took place in the 1960s, but looking back on it, and my wife also mentioned this, I think that the first episode was supposed to take place in the 50s, and then the second episode, the 60s.
I believe so as well.
Yeah, there's a different decade for each episode, potentially.
Yes, and the first time I watched both episodes, I thought the same thing. I thought that it was 60s or 50s. However, after a second viewing, I realized that the decor of their living room and the costume design specifically of Wanda changed pretty dramatically, along with what we talked about, which was the camera styles. But now episode 3, now in color, jumps to 70s. This is 70s. Right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And it's very easy to tell that we made such a big jump because the episode is now fully in color.
Fully in color.
What did you think of this episode?
I thought that this was another fun episode. I think that it didn't do as much to move everything along. I don't know. I guess
you don't think so.
No, let me reframe that. It's hard to say because like part of me was just kind of like watched it and enjoyed it, and then like there was still a little bit of tingling in my brain of like, ooh, things are getting a little bit deeper. But it didn't take, well, I guess it took some turns. It took one turn that kind of like built up a little bit more steadily throughout the episode. And so I guess by the end, I wasn't quite as shocked when the events that occur at the end occur.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't shocked.
If you want to hop into kind of describing that, we're going to probably assume that people have watched it at this point.
Yes.
So
my intention for people viewing this is to view this after watching the episodes. So if you haven't watched this episode, shut this off immediately because we're going to dive right into it.
And the episode's 30 minutes. So you don't have to sink your afternoon into it.
I think this was the shortest episode too, and in my eyes, the most happened in this episode. So the end of episode 2, Wanda is pregnant out of nowhere, and they pick up right where they left off, which apparently was 12 hours later. And they mention that because they open up the episode with a theme song that is in the 70s style. We also have a different theme song. No little hints to anything except that they're in the 70s. The decor of their living room has changed again. Their clothes have changed again, and we see Wanda and Vision meeting with a doctor. Is like, oh, you're 4 months along. And
well, at first his joke is, you're definitely pregnant.
Yes. Oh, really? Like, snap.
This is goofy and stupid, but keep on moving.
Yeah.
No, I liked it. It's goofy and stupid in the right way.
The goofiest part made me like really crack up, but we'll get to that. But so we learned that it's been around 12 hours, at least I believe so, even though it looks like a whole decade has passed. But in any case, she has not been pregnant for 4 months. It's probably been less than a day. And Vision is freaking out, rightfully so. And eventually the doctor leaves, and they are painting the living room, and he is doing some reading. Actually, before they paint the living room, Vision walks the doctor outside. And I don't know if they keep changing the neighbor, because I thought in episode 1 that when Agnes introduced herself, she said, "I'm Agnes, your neighbor to the right, not your right, my right." And watching the episode, that's where you see Herb in episode 3. And in episode 2, I know I'm jumping a little bit all over the place, but in episode 2, Agnes and Wanda walk over to Dottie's house, and I think the address of Dottie's house was 2802, and Wanda and Vision's address is 2800. So I don't know if they're messing around with their neighbors or not, but that was something I thought was a little interesting. But the first surreal moment of the episode happens, and that is where Herb is cutting his bushes. You remember that? What happened there?
So Vision comes out to greet him after the doctor has just left, I believe, and Herb was trimming bushes with like an electric trimmer, and then he started cutting into the retaining wall between Vision and Wanda's driveway and his house, and Vision kind of points it out sort of nonchalantly, and Herb kind of just ignores him. And so it's played up for comedic effect the first time that this sort of encounters, because it is just a silly image. But this interaction comes about later on in the episode, which we'll get on to in a second.
Mm-hmm. And this was a very strange scene because Vision also points out, like, "Oh, looks like you trimmed a little bit too much," or something of the sort. Herb goes, "Looks like I did."
Yeah. And then he just kind of has
Vision's
this
like
crazy look. Okay. One of the other surreal moments that's kind of existing within this world's dream logic is just like the conception of Vision and Wanda's baby. Wanda moves along like 3 months at a time in her pregnancy, pretty much in the blink of an eye. And it becomes almost a joke that Vision is trying to figure out. And he's like, by my calculations, you should be due on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And
Tuesday.
Right. And it moves along fast enough that she winds up giving birth to twins in this episode. And the joke with that is that they keep having this back and forth of he's going to have a fine name and it'll be Tommy, and Vision says, "I don't know, I just think that Billy is such a fine name." And they both have this insistence on what the name of this child is going to be, even though it's like practically the same name. And then at the end, it's almost again just another miraculous turn of fate that both of them, their interests are appeased because they have twin boys.
Yes, I like that. And plus, when they first argued about Billy or Tommy, she said, "Well, let's hope for a girl, so there's no reason for us to argue." But no, the next best thing happened. They both win. And
right.
Plus, I thought it was interesting that he wanted Billy because of William Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, and men and women are merely the players. And I think that quote is a heavy influence on the plot of the whole episode specifically, but I'd say for what the episode partially reveals is the entire world in the series, basically.
Mm-hmm. Which we start getting more and more a sense of outside or inside influences on world creation, because Wanda continues to have some kind of bearing over their created reality, as do possibly the neighbors, or who's her neighbor that she kind of comes into conflict with? Her name, Geraldine. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I think I liked most about this episode, or before getting into that, a lot of the arc of this one is Wanda and Vision more specifically kind of panicking about the kids coming, and then as Wanda is moving very rapidly throughout her progress. Vision runs to get the doctor and try to bring him back. And there's one scene where Geraldine comes in and she's telling Wanda a story, and then from behind the couch that Geraldine is sitting in, a stork kind of starts like wandering out, and the audience doesn't know why it's there. Wanda doesn't know why it's there, but Wanda is just for some reason convinced that if Geraldine sees the stork, it's going to give her and Vision away and give their secret away.
Yeah, so it's another juggling arc, just like the dinner in the first episode.
Yeah, it is, in a sense. It has a lot of or similar comedic bullet points to that sequence. However, one of the things that I so far like about the show, and I thought that this scene exemplified really well, I love it when shows introduce something that's seemingly nonsense and then give it the circuitous logic, so that I'm trying to like take that logical connection and almost use that as like a puzzle tool in understanding like the contrived logic of the world. So the stork that Wanda is trying to shoo away and trying to have Geraldine not notice, finally like creeps up to the couch and starts like nipping at Geraldine's leg. And do
you know why she's nipping at?
Yes, yeah, I'm gonna get to it. But the viewer is just in the understanding of Wanda's belief that like Geraldine just can't know, so this bird's going to give everything away. And then when they do this little close up, you see that Geraldine's pants have this fish pattern on it, and the stork was trying to eat the fish. I'm like, that's such a fun little kind of magic trick of filmmaking of like, look over here. We've already been able to like bypass the fact that this stork being here makes no sense. And so we're in for the ride of like, what's Wanda going to do? Like, what's the stork going to do? How is she going to get it away from Geraldine? And then like, I wasn't thinking that whole time of like, oh, there is some inherently logical reason within the world that's created here why this stork is trying to get to Geraldine, and that's to eat the fish that were on her pants. And it's like one other show that I that does that perfectly is Over the Garden Wall, but it loves to play in that space of, we're not just throwing nonsense at you, like there's a constructed sense of reality within this world. It just doesn't adhere to traditional logic of our present reality. So it's almost like challenging the viewer to like shift your focus a little bit, because there's a different kind of reality at work here. It's not traditional, or a different kind of logic at work here. It's not traditional logic, but there is a logic.
Yeah, and you can make logic with something that not only doesn't exist, but you can give it a reason. You can give it some sort of reasoning that it is a bird-like creature, and birds eat fish. And you don't even, at least I didn't even notice, both times watching this, I didn't notice that her pants were made of fish. Her pants
had a fish pattern.
Fish. Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's... I laughed really, really hard at that scene, because I was like, because it was like two different reveals. Like, hey, you like her outfit? When we look closer, they're of fish, and that's why this fake ass bird is pecking at her legs.
Yeah,
it was really, really clever.
I thought so too. I thought that for everything that this episode kind of throws at you, that was the most fun little bit, and I think that kind of informed how I viewed the rest of the episode in retrospect, because Wanda, as she's like having contractions, the house is going crazy, and they're like the pretty typical like 1970s sitcom conventions of like the painting spinning on the wall and the chandelier is
I loved
going
that.
crazy.
That was my favorite crazy thing that was going on. That really made me crack up for I don't know. I never thought of a painting spinning like that before. It just that made me crack up.
But then she's later on, when her water breaks, it starts storming inside their house. And it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. I understand why this is happening. I don't necessarily understand what it means like in the long run, other than like for some reason Wanda's intense emotions are having some kind of impact on the physical reality around them.
Yeah, and I don't as a viewer of the universe around her, from what we know of her pre-WandaVision, I never knew of her to have these specific type of powers. But with watching the show, her powers seem to go. She does seem to be in full control of everything. For instance, she can play back away from the TV when Vision mentions Wanda. I think something else is at work here. She plays back again, but they don't do the rewind effect.
Yeah, they
this
just
time.
cut back to the scene right before.
And they changed the subject. Basically the same thing that they did with the Beekeeper, but minus the rewind effect, which I thought something happened to my streamer, so I played it back. But no, they just
that's just part of it. But I think the reason that I bring up the fish thing and the whole negotiation of logic in the world, is because that starts having a later bearing towards some of the more suspenseful parts at the end, where the two neighbors start coming back and talking together, and Vision goes out to greet them and is like, have you been noticing things are strange? And they what's her name? Catherine Hahn's character, Agnes says, something to the effect of like, Geraldine can't be trusted, or she's kind of weird.
She has no home.
She has no home. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, of course, all the characters in here right now have been neighbors and they've been chummy with each other and they've had like a specific purpose in this world. And it's the kind of thing that you just take for granted until somebody points it out to you that somebody has no home. And it's like, that's not something that would have like gone through my mind otherwise until they bring it up. And it's basically sort of subtly revealing some of the layers to, again, how this world makes sense, but also, hey, look at these things that you're not paying attention to right now. Like we're deliberately playing in blind spots that you have as a viewer, and things are going on here. So I feel one, that it's like, it's fun. I'm encouraged to look for those things in the future. And like, two, I am going back to the other moments in this episode and the previous episodes and thinking like, yeah, what other things am I just taking for granted that like I'm probably like inherently not questioning, but maybe I should be.
Yeah, I one thing that I thought that maybe another thing that I didn't notice, but it was one thing as I'm watching this series is that we're focused on two main characters and we never really cut to a B storyline outside of these characters. Or if we cut to any other scene, it's like a quick clip inside the same setting of the scene that we're watching. For instance, with the guy in the mustache and the magic show in episode 2, they're like, oh, now we're using so-and-so's piano, and it starts levitating. And Wanda turns it into a flat cutout. So it's just like, it's not a piano. It's just like basically a picture of a piano. And they cut to this guy in the mustache, goes, that was my grandma's piano.
He also had the best line in this episode, which was when he's there and his wife walks in and says, does this ring make me look fat? And the power goes out and he just goes, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
That delivery. But
that's what I'm saying. That's one thing I found really interesting, is that as far as I remembered from all of these episodes, I don't think they've ever cut to a scene, because when that happens, it happens because Wanda is her water's about to break. She's going through contraction. The power goes out in the whole city, apparently, in the whole city. And it cuts to someone else's house. And for one thing, I don't think that that was Dottie and this guy worked with Vision, and he was on the Neighborhood Watch, but I don't think they ever mentioned that them two are married. So I found it very weird they're married, for one, but for two, it was very outside the realm of normalcy for the series for them to just jump even though it's in the same city, they jump to a different location, and I don't think that they've done that before.
Yeah,
so,
it's so an interesting little bit of genre examination that I think is going on deliberately from the creators in having this set within domestic sitcom kind of genre, is that element of voyeurism of everybody looking in and watching with kind of obsession these two specific characters and all of their antics. And it's sort of uncanny that there is this fascination on just these two people and what they're getting up to. And especially from the reveal at the end of this, where Geraldine is kicked out of this kind of dimension or just flung from it. And there's like all of a sudden helicopters and force fields set up around something that we can't see. And it's further emphasizing that theory of some organization, somebody is actively watching and possibly manipulating this setting. So still a little bit more Truman Showy on the themes. But also it's a good marriage of the style and the substance. Like there's a reason that this is happening within a sitcom kind of setting that works towards the greater like science fiction ideas of the show.
Yeah. And the fact that they do such a jump is just like in episode 1, I thought it was strange that they would do that when they just changed the camera styles. I thought that was strange. When they started to do color in the end of episode 2, I thought that was a big jump and a big step forward with genre. But this, it felt like it was a lot, because every time that they give you a clue to what's really going on, it's a little overwhelming, and it's scary. I think every time it's really scary.
Yeah. Even if nothing explicitly scary happens, there's just a buildup that's really unsettling. Even just the first time that Vision mentions, I think that things aren't okay. And there were a handful of times when I was hearing the laugh track, and I was like, are we supposed to be laughing? The laugh track almost intrudes on the earnest questioning of the characters.
Yeah, like also after the birthing scene, well, when the twins are born, the Vision's walking the doctor out, and it's like, so enjoy your trip to Bermuda. Goes, well, I don't know if we can go to Bermuda anymore. Small town. It's hard to
escape. Yeah.
Escape. And I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure they might not have added a laugh track, but there's sometimes they add a laugh track with those parts. And that's when Vision walks over to the neighbors and everything, and they're trying to tell him something, but he can't figure it out. But also, I think this is more of like commenting on the mystery of it is. This keeps changing my theories, and it's very frustrating. But I dig it because it's a guessing game, and with outside of the world of just the TV show, Vision is dead as far as we know. So one of the biggest mysteries is, well, how are we making the show with Vision? But if we know that Vision is dead, and when you hear the doctor say it's really hard to escape, and then you got the neighbors saying don't trust Geraldine, who gets kicked out of this world because she is, from what the neighbors say, she is basically an outsider is what they're saying. She has no home because she doesn't technically live in this city. When she's discussing her temp job with Wanda, it was a temp job, but she got a promotion. Usually temp jobs go to someone that's new. So they give you little breadcrumbs that this person is new to this neighborhood. And I'm pretty sure Geraldine mentions that too.
Yeah.
So we know that she's new and she's an outsider.
Well,
and she literally gets flung outside. At least I
right.
think
And
so.
there's reason to believe that it may have been Wanda that threw her out, because Geraldine brings up to Wanda when Wanda said, I had a twin brother, his name was Pietro. And then Geraldine said,
Man,
"Oh
you
yeah,
nailed that name. I paused this show and I said it because I knew I'd have to say it, but you said it, so I don't have to. But you nailed it. Go on.
And Geraldine says, "Didn't Ultron kill Pietro?" And Geraldine tries to move on as though she said that something that she's not supposed to. And Wanda insists that she go back to it and explain what's happening. And then when Vision walks in on the scene after Geraldine has supposedly left, Wanda seems very eased or self-content. And I think that she may have found a way to kick Geraldine out of her reality.
I think she did. So when one thing with rewatching these episodes, I notice a few things, and that is that Wanda doesn't seem to remember the dinner scene. The dinner scene, they're like, well, where'd you guys come from? Wanda's like, the way that the characters are sat at the table is not traditional sitcom where you can see everyone's face. Mm-hmm. You can't see Vision's face. You can see Wanda. And Wanda looks genuinely confused. She's like, I don't know. But she doesn't say I don't know. They can't answer the question. And there's little breadcrumbs of her not being able to remember things. And when her and Geraldine are looking at the twins, and she goes, I had a twin brother once, and she starts singing in Sokovian, that's all of a sudden normal. She had a normal memory that didn't seem like it just popped in. Well, it did mm-hmm. kind of seem like it popped in her head. And I feel like that Geraldine's character, because Geraldine kind of breaks. So let's say that she is indeed an outsider and she's not part of the sitcom, part of this community. She is kind of, if she isn't, she is a spy and she is trying to act like she is part of this. And she's silly and everything when she comes in and tells this temp story and goes along with this storyline. However, there are two parts where she goes outside the character of sitcom. First, it is, which you could do sitcom-y, but I thought from how the actress did the reaction that it was genuine, and it was the stork makes a noise, and Geraldine stands up. She goes, "What was that?" And she doesn't have any humor in her voice, because a humor way to say that is, "What was that? That sounded really strange."
Yeah.
Instead, it was, "What was that?"
It was interrupting the tone and pace.
Exactly. It interrupted the tone and pace, and she goes right back into it. And just like this scene, she goes, "Oh, they're so beautiful." And then she mentions her brother, and Geraldine gets back out and she goes, "He was killed by Ultron, wasn't he?" She gets serious. And when they're having this very short conversation, Wanda seems to stare off. And after Geraldine mentions Ultron, she stares off and a tear comes down her eye. And acting wise, it seemed that how Elizabeth Olsen did it was that Wanda was like, "What?" And she's starting to wait a minute. Yeah, Ultron. That's how my brother died. It seemed like she only remembered her brother, but she forgot that he died. Mm-hmm. And then I can't remember if Geraldine tried more to help her remember or tried to get information out of her. But all of a sudden, Wanda goes from nostalgia to not frustration, paranoia. And that paranoia is, what's it? Accusational? I don't know if that's a word.
Yeah.
Accusatory. Yeah, it becomes accusatory and questionable. Because at first it was, what did you say? And then it goes to, what did you say? no, what did you just say? And that's when Geraldine's like, oh no, we're all happy. Oh, so what do you, I'll rock the babies. She goes, no, what did you say? And then she notices her necklace, which is, I think, very, very important.
Yep. I think that symbol's going to come up again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I figured as I was writing my notes, so we've seen the symbol 3 times total, I believe.
Oh, was it maybe on the plane at one point?
Correct.
Was it? Okay.
So the first time is in the notebook at the very end of episode 1, and it was the cover on the notebook. The second time was on the airplane, which was in color, which seemed to have crashed. That was in color in a black and white world that crashed into the bushes. That we still haven't seen that plane yet. I'm very angry because I know it's there. And the third time, I don't think the beekeeper had any sort of anything besides that he looked like a beekeeper. But the third time is, yes, her necklace. And I'm just trying, you know what sucks about the show? Every popular series, like Godzilla vs. Kong trailer came out today, and I want nothing to do with it because I'm ecstatic for it. I can't go onto my movie sites and read about other movie things
without things being spoiled.
It's like, oh, Vision is actually Tony Stark because of this. And I'm like, God dang it, now I know that. That's not true, by the way. But point being, sword apparently... There's a thing, never mind. This symbol is apparently something in the comic book world, and I'm trying to stay away from it, and I want to know what's going on in the series as we watch, you know?
Yeah.
But it's apparent that she works for this place, and what Geraldine messed up on was not only asking about Ultron, but for wearing the necklace of this helicopter that is foreign, and it is foreign because it was in color, and also... Wanda was the one that found it, and she saw the symbol. So she made the connection because I'm pretty sure she asks her, who are you? Who are you? She figures out she's not where she belongs. She's not supposed to be part of this world. So I thought that was genuinely really, really cool. And I loved the cross-cutting between, because they're both somewhat, you don't know what's going to happen next. The cross-cutting between Vision discovering that that the neighbors are warning him, that Wanda is almost figuring something out, and when everything comes to a climax, it is, oh, she's gone, and something interesting happens with the screen. Can you explain that? Because I can't explain that.
Yeah, so... I think that this episode wasn't in full screen, right? It wasn't.
So I know this. I know I should know this. I know we went to college together, but full screen means there's bars at the top and bottom depending on what TV you're watching, right? No, yeah, full screen. No, it isn't. Or full screen is just full. Widescreen is what that is. So I think it was full screen. I don't know.
Yeah, there's just something that happens in the end where the bars on the left and right, top and bottom, kind of start shifting into this widescreen angle when it transitions from the comedy space into some kind of outside this world space where we see Geraldine essentially kicked out of the world, and then this crazy like military presence show up around her.
Mm-hmm. And I thought you mentioned something about the aspect ratio before in a previous episode. Do you remember or no? I thought you meant
yeah. In previous episodes, it was 4:3, so like the standard kind of box.
Oh man, we're getting real technical. Used to. I love it.
Hardly, but yeah. And then I'm trying to remember if this one was in 4:3 as well. I just remember seeing that shift at the end of the
episode 2, right, when it started getting color. Is that what it was?
Towards the end of episode 2, it's sort of there's a similar sort of effect where the camera sort of moves out and there's playing with those boxes on bordering the screen. So yeah, just in both cases, I think it's meant to signal like the shift from the inner reality to some sort of external reality. and also just to kind of make things a little bit uneasy when it exits that central narrative sort of scene.
The only time I've ever seen a screen literally transform like that between scenes, it is from a dialogue scene to an action scene. But for this, it was very apparent that of what you said, that it goes from inside the sitcom-y world to outside into some other world with a military presence and everything like that. But I thought that was really, 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 really cool.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect it. I really didn't expect it.
Sure. Yeah. When I said at the beginning that this one maybe introduces less than the first two episodes, I think it's more that this episode just has a little bit more focus than episodes 1 and 2 do, which by no means like go all over the place or anything. It's just that they are establishing a lot in those first 2 episodes, and especially establishing a tone that, again, we by this episode are encouraged to read more into and kind of play in the space within the space. So if you were in the first 2 episodes really looking for all kinds of extra Easter eggs or things that would tell you more about what's to come in the story, I think that this episode is a little bit more rich with that than the first 2.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because in the first 2, it was like the first one, I would say, because it usually happens at the end. And the first one, it was really just the dinner scene and the very, very end where you see a TV screen. But that like accumulates to maybe 2 minutes. In the third episode, it was the beekeeper scene, which was like maybe around 2 minutes. But this one had 2 full-on scenes with it.
Yeah, I mean, moreover, it's playing with what you expect to be acceptable and unacceptable within the logic of the world and how the players in it are playing, because we have messing around with time and Wanda being 6 months long and then 9 months long and then having the kids in the same episode. There's messing with her emotional state, having some sort of physical control of their house in the city. There's an understanding that the neighbors are in on something or aware of something or hiding it. And almost that the neighbors are kind of like glitching because the neighbor starts like trimming through the hedge, and it's really awkward. But then there are also things like Vision running at his super speed to get the doctor and then running back, and they're all Vision and Wanda are super concerned about not giving away that they have superpowers, and yet this was totally okay for Vision to do. So it's
that was weird. It's
right,
almost like flying, but they kind of ignore it. And I think, and I can't. Did she make Dottie's hand in episode 2? Did she make the glass explode in her hand?
I don't know. I thought that was maybe just, I don't know.
Point being, I feel like that the superpowers happen in front of people and they do a glitch of, well, anyway, like Agnes in this episode was, Herb was trying to tell him, Vision, something that it's because we're all, and she's like, Agnes, like, stop. And Vision's like, what are you trying to tell me? And there's a long pause and Agnes goes, well, that macrame ain't gonna crochet itself or something.
Yeah, macrame ain't gonna crochet
I don't
itself.
think those are words.
You almost had words there.
Almost. Macram. I've heard the word. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, I just, there's episodes 1 and 2 had a lot more scene setting to do, and then this one had a little bit more focus on the structure of events and kind of like what is allowed to happen and what's not allowed to happen, and kind of playing with your understanding of what things you're paying attention to and what things you aren't paying attention to.
And I made it pretty known that I was excited for the mind fuckiness of this. So like I I did like that there was a little more to it, and that the focus. I don't know if I fully liked. I just think they're moving a little fast.
Oh
because
yeah,
I'm digging the sitcom stuff. The thing with the stork was hilarious, but it really made me really, really crack up because Geraldine hears the stork, goes back to normal, and Wanda's like, "Oh, well, there's the breathing scene with Vision. She, even though she's supposed to be breathing that way, she's like." And he's doing it, which is calming him down because he's levitating, freaking out. I loved that, dude. They're really good at comedy. I'm very, very appreciative of their acting in this.
They've been really good at playing off of each other, and I don't know if that's solely the actors or if it's the direction or whatever, but it seems pretty natural.
It's extremely
Elizabeth
natural,
Olsen and Paul
and
Bettany.
it's so far outside themselves from what we're familiar with in the MCU films that I find it extremely impressive that they're doing. But it was when Geraldine's going into the baby room. And Wanda goes, "Wait, don't go in there." And Geraldine's about to turn. You see the stork, and the stork goes into the position of the wall
of the painting.
Of the painting. Oh my god!
And it's
I laughed so hard.
It's fun too because I like that. Again, that plays with the logic of the characters or the perspective of the characters and the perspective of the viewer, because from the viewer's perspective, it's a 90-degree angle shot. So it looks like the stork is flush with the wall, but anybody in the room would clearly be able to see like, that's not going to be their perspective. So it's almost like the character in that scene is meant to adopt our perspective, which again is something that would totally fly within a goofy sitcom, but not within any kind of like normal understandings of reality. So it's again playing with like, here is the style becoming substance at times.
Yes, but it makes it even more confusing when you see someone trying to react off of these things like it is the wacky sitcom-y thing, because in the wacky sitcom-y world, yeah, they would ignore that, but yes, in reality, you'd be like, "What the hell is that thing?"
Yeah.
But instead of when Geraldine brings up Ultron, of like pressuring that, she decides to go back to the sitcom-y thing. Does that mean that when she goes to the sitcom-y type of deal that she always knew the stork was there? I think I'm looking a little too far into it. It's just a question because it's confusing, you know? It's just it's a messed up show.
Yeah, I think that like ultimately it's the characters are playing with the viewer. It, as much as we look back and forth at the characters playing one another, I think it's all in this kind of loop to play the viewer.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. And they're toying with me very much so, but I dig it. And I also dig I don't think that they're showing, because usually at the end of sitcoms or anything like that, it's like next week on, which they could have done something because they do these commercials, which we got another new commercial.
Yeah, this one wasn't like as especially outlandish as the other ones. It was for a brand of soap, soap opera. So,
and it was so. You know, if you can't tell, I'm looking for things all the time, but and the first two commercials had the same two actors, and I'm guessing that this third episode was narrated by the male actor and starred the female actor, but that I was expecting to see him, but I like the 70s style of showing a scene, pausing, and then having that screen, and then doing another scene.
Yeah,
I liked that a lot.
It's a fun little bit of cheesy editing.
Oh yeah, and I love cheesy editing. It's the most fun. But the one thing I have to mention is I think that these are very, very important because the first episode's commercial was for a toaster by Stark Industries. The second episode was for a watch called Strucker, I believe, and they do a close up of it, and you see the Hydra symbol. And this third episode, it is Hydra soap. So it's straight up.
Yeah, I didn't even connect that, huh?
I had to play it back because I was watching because when these commercials come up, I'm like, okay, what is it this time? I'm thinking it's going to be a different company because you can't, when you go from Stark Industries to Hydra, that's very different. And for people that don't know the movies, Hydra is the evil corporation. But that's why my theory is she made a deal. Wanda made a deal with someone from Hydra to have a perfect life with Vision. Because the soap commercial said, escape to a world of your own or something in the soap commercial. Because in the soap commercial, she's going through all the troubles of having a family and needing a break. He goes, come with me. And she's in a bathtub. And I believe he says, escape in a world all of your own. And it's something for a goddess. So I believe that was a little nudge that Hydra is giving something to Wanda, but Wanda needs to fit in, as shown by Agnes. Like, you need to fit in. If you want Dottie to like you, you need to fit in. Don't act like yourself. But Vision figuring it out makes it the deal not void for Wanda. So I don't know. Of course, we don't know enough, but my theory keeps changing and shifting a little bit, but I dig it. I dig these little mysteries, but I thought it was another great episode. I love the 70s style. I love the goofiness. It was just dope.
Agreed.
Yeah. So next will be 80s. What's an 80s show that they could make? Because I don't know. I am so
sitcom illiterate. So
me too.
It's hard for me. I recognize a lot of visual stylings, but I couldn't like name a show that I ever religiously watched or anything.
No, because I'm guessing this 70s episode is Brady Bunch-esque, maybe. I never watched Brady Bunch, but that's what I'm guessing. And 80s, I guess, would be I know, like, bright colors and like curly hair. I guess Saved by the Bell, maybe.
That's a show.
Yeah, but I don't know what 90s is going to be. Seinfeld? That'd be interesting.
Oh, boy.
But
Frasier.
that'd be dope, though.
It's not set
yeah,
in Frasier.
That'd be cool if they got Michael Richards to like, oh, wrong set. What is this show? Crossover. That'd be awesome. But I dig it. It is the same director again. And I did also forget to mention that the showrunner creator, she is the writer of something that's coming out in the MCU, and of course I forgot what it was, so I'll have to mention that.
We'll blurt it out next week. Yeah.
Oh, Black Widow.
Oh, cool.
Black Widow. Yeah.
Well, you wanna take us out?
All right. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of WandaVision. If you have any theories, keep them to yourself. If you have any
let
theories,
me have mine.
Yeah, let me have this and go make your own videos. But if you have any comments of like, hey, did you notice this? Feel free to say it. If there's anything you want us to talk about or talk about less, because I'm all over the place. Dan is the only one that keeps this really stringing along. But,
maybe I'll edit this one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and also I think people watch all of these episodes, like the whole thing. I can't tell, but it's hard for me to keep it short. I can't. I just love talking about it. And I love conversing with you as well. But thank you for watching. Thank you for we got a lot of people, a lot of my friends and everything have messaged me like, hey, great job. I love your guys' conversations. Keep it up. Like, we haven't been doing it for years. So
occasionally we let it go for a year or two, but we'll always come back around.
We'll always come back. We will. And we will hopefully be back next week. Until then, my name's Tony.
I'm Dan.
And we will see you next time. Can we do the thing?
There we go.
Nice.